The top 20 legendary heroes in Watcher of Realms for progressing a new account. That is right. In this video, we are ranking the top 20 legendaries, non-exclusive. So no ancient exclusive heroes, no limited banners, no fusion or summoning event only, just the normal pool of heroes. Who are the 20 best that are going to help you to get off to the best start possible on a brand spanking new account? This list, of course, is going to include many of the best legendaries in the game, but there are a couple of the best that are omitted for reasons that will become clear as we go through this. Best overall, not best for progression. If they were best for progression, they'd be on this list. And then there are a couple that aren't that good. You'll see a little spicy one at number 20 that actually are really good for early game progression. So what is early game? Well, I'm saying the heroes in Watcher Realms that are best equipped to carry you through the campaign and then up through gear raids 1, 2, and 3, stage 18, and even help you beat 19. Also, once you beat 18, you'll have unlocked the gear dungeons. Maybe they help you start chipping away at the very early stages there. That's kind of what you need to do in this game to have started your account well, and then you can start farming only your red mythic gear. I think that's when the game progresses into the mid and then late game. So it's the heroes that are going to take you through stage 18, stage 19, and the very early stages of gear dungeon. And oh, let's not forget, help you beat the campaign. You know, the campaign's not a top priority, but for that stuff, you need very versatile heroes. So why am I making this video now? I've been making content in this game for a year and a half. Why now? Well, we are starting a new, very spicy challenge on my website that I'm hosting through my YouTube along with war guides. It is called the 3 to Play Challenge. And actually, from the time I'm filming this video, you can see it kicks off in 12 hours. By the time this video goes live, it will probably be about 10 hours. Pretty dang exciting. We're keying in on the normal legendaries for this video for progression because the way this challenge is going to work is you start a new free-to-play account, you get your Volca eventually, but you can only pick 3 other legendary heroes to build. So choose wisely. Hopefully this list will help you choose wisely. So without further ado, the 20 best heroes in Watcher of Realms for early into the start of mid-game progression. Let's get into it.
Fastidious.
Fastidious.
I want to reiterate and make this very clear. This is a list of my top 20 normal legendary heroes for progression. No ancient exclusive heroes. So no Praetus, no Ingrid, no Ardia, no exclusive heroes, no limited heroes. So no Sun Wukong, no Honora, no Dahlia, and no event exclusive heroes like Callista or Ma, something like that. So I do not want to see in the comments, where's Ingrid? Where's Ardia? Where's Sun Wukong? They can't make this list. They don't fit the criteria for this list. Thank you. Let's go. Alrighty, folks, coming in at number 20, a very spicy one, but I'm not just doing it exclusively for the spice. I do feel this way. We're coming in with Kria. Kria is not a particularly good hero. I have her ranked as a C overall on my website. However, for the early game specifically, carrying you through the campaign, helping you out in Gear Raid 1, even helping you out in the middle in Gear Raid 2, even picking a side on Gear Raid 3, she's pretty dang usable. So why is that? Well, Kria, aside from Ingrid, has the highest, where the heck is Kria? Kria, there you are. She has the highest base attack of any AoE mage in the game, 5,248. So she's supremely easy to build. She doesn't have very good multipliers. She doesn't scale well, and you really, really, really outgrow her even as early as the mid game and then certainly in the late and end game. But for the early game, for quick progression, she's really helpful. You need tons of AoE when you're starting this game. She brings it. She's got a little crowd control. And quite frankly, even without ulting and stuff like that, that really high base attack makes her really, really easy to build. You go triple attack bonus on the right side, and she will carry you. Honestly, she will. You will outgrow her. Don't start thinking she's a good hero overall, but she is a good hero. I'm going to tell you right now, Silas is not on this list. I think that's probably going to piss some people off. Again, that is not just to be spicy. You're going to see a theme here. There's a couple single target units. You're going to see that with Hex in just a minute. He's next. I'll just show you that right now. But unless they're an incredibly good single target unit and they're very versatile, really meaning that they're a platform unit, they're just not going to show up here. So it's not to say Silas isn't that great. He is, but when you're starting in the early game for progression, Silas is not going to be bound with Vierna unless you're super lucky. Of course, it's possible, but You know, a lot of us won't be lucky and get that. So you're going to have a normal unbound Silas, meaning you won't have this passive unlocked, the best bond skill in the game. And also, he's only going to be bringing single target. So combine only single target without the total delete button of this passive. He's just a really good single target marksman. That does not a good progression hero make, in my opinion. You need a lot more than that early on. You need a lot more versatility. Until you get a hero like that really, really maxed out, he's not going to bring it. Hex, I kind of feel similarly. He's going to be better than Silas for the early game because he's a little more flexible because of his dual faction, stuff like that. He is a Star Piercer and an Infernal. Also, he's magic damage, which is more valuable earlier in the game. However, you're not going to have Hex at his final form, right? When you're starting the game off, unless you're insanely lucky week 3 or 4, but even then you're probably out of the early game if you're playing every day, you're not going to have his exclusive artifact. So you're just dealing with like a really good single target magic DPS. He's probably the best you're going to get in this kind of scenario. Maybe Nocturne, there's actually a strong argument for. He's one of my honorable mentions. But yeah, I think Hex is probably the best you can settle for. But even still, it's not such a top priority in this early game progression kind of situation. If you disagree with anything I'm saying, light me up in the comments. I don't mind. We can debate. We can get angry at each other, but let's keep going. I want to be pretty quick with this list. At number 18, we've got Nyx, and I'll just show you already at number 17, we have Razaak. I put them side by side. I value magic damage over piercing damage more when you're starting an account. It's just more necessary and it's harder to get, so they get a knock for that. But when it comes to AoE piercing damage, Razaak and Nyx are the best you're going to get. Nyx overall is a significantly better hero than Razaak as you progress through the game. However, she doesn't have burst damage. She's a very long ult. This thing goes up to 30 seconds and then 35 seconds with Awakening 1. It's really, really nice, really big range, very punishing, but it's kind of gradual damage because it's hit by hit by hit. It's still really good, and as an AoE marksman, she has very high attack for a marksman, not in general. But Razaak is kind of in the same boat, for just over 4,000 attack as well, but he has big, crazy burst on his ultimate. So this is not something you need so much later on in the game. You actually prefer Nyx's continuous punishing attack. You get her artifact on her. She's shredding through everything. But when you're progressing, when you're in the early game, Razaak with that big AoE burst, this big slam, it goes up to 1,000% damage to all enemies in range with that huge range. It is phenomenal. So it makes him a much better, I shouldn't say much better. I have them next to each other for a reason, but it does make him for a lot of content slightly better than Nyx, especially things where you need to just burst units down. If you're using him in Gear Raid 3 and it's getting sweaty, Razaak's slightly better. Gear Raid 2, he's definitively better. So they're side by side, but actually this is like an interesting way I think this list takes form. If you're evaluating it just for the start of the game, Nyx is much better than Razaak in general, but actually for that early game progression, I do prefer Razaak. At number 16, let's see who we got. This is where Constance comes in. She's not like super needed. She's a luxury, but a phenomenal luxury at that. Some of you might be saying, why is Constance here? You can just use Dolores. Who cares about a legendary version yet? You already have your inspiration hero. Well, for one, not everyone's going to have Dolores early game. That is a very real thing. I'm sure someone can tell us in the comments that they had to wait 50 or 100 or 150 days for Dolores. It does happen. But very importantly, Constance, when I did my defender rankings with Slate, a lot of people seem to think that was a top best defenders in the game at being a defender, at being a tank. No, it was the best heroes in the game that are classified as a defender, right? So just that have that class designation. Constance, however, even though I ranked her as my number 1 and I think she's that special as a hero, she's not a very good defender. She's not a very good tank, except in the early game. In the early game, she still has pretty good stats. They're better than any epic or just about the same, kind of right on par with like a Baron or an Olog. She's good enough, plus you're getting the inspiration, plus you're getting the healing. Later on in the game, you don't need her healing, but early on, it's really helpful. She's super versatile and she's a really, really good carry. I'll tell you, she's the only tank on this list because even a really, really good tank like Broke here, you might as well just use Olog early game. But someone like Constance, you want these versatile heroes you can use anywhere. She's giving you inspiration. She does function early game well as a tank, and she's giving you healing. Love this chick. Also, it's pretty cool that she's dual faction. That certainly does help. Let's go now to number 15. Who we got here? This is going to be Laya. I'm not discriminating against lords. This isn't a non-lord list. It's only a non-exclusive hero list. So you won't see any ancient exclusive lords or ancient exclusive heroes. No limited heroes like Sun Wukong or Kagiri. No special event heroes like Ma. Not that he would ever dream of being on this list, but you will see a couple lords. I'm going to tell you, you're going to see 2 lords. The first of the 2 is Laya. Laya is also one of only 2 healers on this list. The reason Laya's making this list is several things, because she's just, again, really versatile. That is the theme. She is a lord of a pretty strong faction in the Watchguard with lots of very obtainable heroes, particularly epics to start off the game. Iona, Brienne, Idril, very, very good stuff. And then as an actual hero, not a lord, she's bringing a ton to the table. Solid multi-target healing, big rage boosting and damage boosting. You'll see the damage increase comes over here. Very flexible as both a healer and a support with a very relevant, powerful Lord skill that helps a very relevant early game faction. So she's a really, really good choice. Also, you love a big range when you're starting off these games and you really need to cover everything and you're kind of strapped for good heroes. Her ultimate, as you can see right over here, has an incredibly huge range. Normally, she has like the Elwyn range. If we bring her to max level, you'll see that here. But during the ultimate, she gets Aelin range, which is really, really, really good. So let's continue on. Let's go into our top 14 now. At number 14, we have got Valkyra. So I believe the first fighter on our list, and you're going to see all the fighters that are on this list have something in common. They can all hit aerial units. I think that is really, really important. If you're bringing a fighter this early on in the game, I mean, obviously you're going to be bringing tons of fighters, but you know, you've got good epic options. You've got good free-to-play options. You'll have yourself a Volca. By the way, Volca won't be on this list since we get her for free. I don't think you need to worry about getting her for progression since you just already will have her. They give you her for free from the quest. But with other fighters, you know, between Volca and Wrath, maybe pull an Estrid, even Ein, who you get for free on day 7 is pretty good. You don't care too much about, you know, just how much damage is this fighter doing. That's more of like a guild boss thing, which you'll get to slightly later on once the gear is relevant. The key thing is, are they doing a bunch of AoE? And are they versatile in that can they hit aerial units? So it doesn't say it anywhere in Valkyra's kit, but she actually does during her ultimate gain the ability to hit air. She can hit anti-air targets. Very, very good. She's very strong AoE. She's got very cool things with her talent, with vulnerability. She's in 2 factions, namely Northerner, which is maybe the best early game progression faction in the whole game. She's just really well-rounded, really good. And it's going to help you probably in all content. I think you could use her in. You'll use her in Gear Aid 1, Gear Aid 2, and if you need someone in the middle, you can use her in Gear Aid 3. She's going to be phenomenal in campaign. She's just a very strong, very well-rounded hero. That's why she made the list. Number 13, you can see I'm putting her next to someone very similar, just like I did with Nyx and Razaak. A lot of people might think Valkyra is better than Aeris, but I'd say for certain content, no, she isn't. Overall, she is. But for early game, Aeris is just crazy. He hits anti-air more consistently. He has much higher base attack at just over 5,000, makes him really easy to build, and he has humongous multipliers. He even has a little crowd control. Aeris, I'll tell you, I would be thrilled to get Aeris on my free-to-play account. He would be humongous for progression. This guy is just a delete button, 2 very relevant factions. Really, really nice. You know, Valkyra probably overall is a better hero than Aeris in part because she's an Arbiter. That becomes really important. But for the early game, you'd be lucky to have Elysia, let alone Praetus. So it's just not something to really worry about. So Aeris, phenomenal. We're really entering the top tier territory now for progression heroes. All right, on to number 12. We've got Morrigan. This is the second of our 2 lords on the list. So why is Morrigan here? Well, I think AoE magic damage is so important in the early game. I've done a lot of accounts. I've done a lot of takeovers. I just think it's kind of king, and Morrigan's kind of the queen of AoE magic damage. Not saying her damage is that good, but actually early game it kind of is. You know, you don't need like goated Boreas, Khamet, Vierna, all that stuff, even though they're going to be on this list. You don't need that level damage for a lot of stuff in the early game. And then on top of that, Morrigan's super special because she is the lord of those units. She is the lord for Vierna or Artemis, or who else can you get? Beelzebub. She is the lord for Magda. And then if we go to the epics, Greed, Iona. It's really, really strong. Honestly, as I say it now, maybe she even needs to be higher on the list. If you pull her in the 3 to play, it's a total no-brainer because she's giving huge Lord skills. And actually, though you do outgrow her DPS, because it's solid, I mean, it's definitely better than Kria, but it's not like special. It's just not to the level you need later on in the game. But at the beginning of the game, dang spicy. Maybe she should have been in the top 10. Let me know if you disagree with that one. Now we got number 11. This is going to be Magda. Speaking of cultists, Magda is just crazy. Part of the reason she's not higher is because a lot of her strength, just in general, that makes her such a special, crazy hero, but certainly during the early game, is going to come from this passive over here, Electric Torrent. She's going to boost the penetration and the damage of adjacent allies. To get this really amazing, you need full skill ups. Getting full skill ups is going to be really hard in the early game. But if you got that, she would get even higher on the list. But basically, she doesn't hit anti-air. She's the only fighter on this list. I should have mentioned that earlier. There is one fighter. She's the only fighter on this list that does not hit anti-air, does not hit aerial targets, but she destroys everything else. I mean, the crazy AoEs over here with the multi-hitters, incredible stuff. Consistent AoE on the basics. She can do all these different boosts to her crit damage when allies die. And like I said, this is an incredible passive. So Magda is just a crazy hero. So much AoE, such big damage, and one of the best support skills in the game. This is any hero like within one tile of her. So up above her, those 3, down below her, those 3, and to the right, to the left. This is incredible. She would be a lot of fun to pull on a new account. So on to our top 10. Who do we have at number 10? This might be controversial because people don't seem to like her that much anymore, but I'm putting Zilitu. Zilitu, it's just single target, but it is insane quality single target. And what sets her apart from the other single target fighters, you can already guess it, she consistently hits aerial units. So a big issue is when you hit aerial units, they almost always have light armor. Light armor is weak to piercing damage, not magic damage. Actually, magic damage does worse against it. Well, you don't really have to worry about that in the early game because defense and magic res are usually pretty well balanced on all the heroes. It's not until the later stages of the gear raids and then certainly other content like the gear dungeons that, like, if they have light armor, they just have the highest magic res ever. Or if they have heavy armor, they just have the highest defense. Early on, Zilitu totally can work against aerial units. She's really good in Gear Raid 3. Starting at like Gear Raid 3 stage 20, she falls off a cliff, but up until then, she is a superstar. She scales really well. She's really easy to build, tons of burning, and she's the star of a really easy to use early game faction as an Infernal. If you pull yourself a Pyros, you can go crazy against any bosses. That is throughout the campaign. That's in Gear Raid stuff, like even Gear Raid 2, but certainly Gear Raid 1 and Gear Raid 3. And then absolutely, we're not specifically focusing on this, but completely broken and easy in Guild Boss 1. So she's just huge for progression. I had to put her in my top 10. If you guys want to argue with it though, let's argue with it. Number 9, who do we have? This is going to be Artemis. So this is maybe the most interesting one. He's like the king of the mid game. He would be way higher if it was just for that. But because the progression lens I'm using to evaluate this is kind of from getting you through the early game and then starting the mid game, I had to include him. So why is that? He's the best anti-heal hero in the game. And actually his damage is really good, especially in the early game. And the heals are very significant. So he's just really, really versatile, really easy to use. And the second you're just stepping out of that early game, you're starting the mid game, you have to do Gear Dungeon 1, those first couple stages, and then certainly Gear Raid 1, 19 or 20. He is nuts with the anti-heal. He is just phenomenal. And yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to his damage because it is really, really, really significant. He would be someone I think anyone should build in one of these challenges because it's going to be a pretty hard carry, and especially as you look to progress through the mid game, this guy is the god. He is incredible, and he's pretty easy to build, especially if you're lucky enough to get him A1. Crazy, crazy hero. Let's continue on. Number 8. Who's it going to be? We've got Vierna. We're going to start with a lot of AoE mages now, and Vierna is going to be the first in our top 10 of that bunch. Vierna's just crazy, right? Her execute ability is remarkable. She kills enemies with HP below 25% after a short delay. This goes up to 35%. If somehow you're like just getting out of the early game into the mid game and you get her exclusive gear, this goes up to 45%. That execute for progression for killing mobs, as you're going to see here. Well, actually, she one-shot them in the example above me. It's crazy. Vierna is really, really good from a very good progression faction. And I'll also say this is just kind of like the cherry on top, but let's say you did have that Silas. The second you get Vierna, Silas goes from like the 21st or 22nd best progression hero on my list to like top 5 or 10 without a doubt. So just remarkable how good she is and how much she can help Silas become like the best DPS in the game. So very, very, very good hero. Let's continue at number 7. Who do we have? We've got Yuri. I gotta say, some people might be surprised she's at 7. I was surprised I couldn't get her higher on the list. No one, whether you're not as high on Yuri as me, fine. You're wrong, but fine. It happens to the best of us. When it comes to progression, I don't think anyone can argue with me about how insanely good Yuri is. She is coded as a single target unit, which means her multipliers are very high. But on top of that, she's consistently doing burst damage and AoE damage. From her talents, get her going even a little fast. She's going to start triggering her chaos orbs. They're exploding. We're getting multi-target. We're getting AoE. During her ultimate, though it is single target, she jumps from unit to unit to unit with the biggest possible range. She has completely crazy defense reduction, which is so insanely valuable in the early game. You're struggling to get good enough gear to get your attack higher than their defense. She breaks that defense down. The reduction starts at minus 15%, goes up to minus 25. Very consistent. And it is 100% uptime against bosses. She's just really, really, really good throughout the whole game, but particularly in the early game. She can carry you to the promised land. Like I said, I really thought I was going to be able to get her higher on the list, but there are just so many good heroes. You're going to see, starting with Yuri, this is a huge tier jump. I would say from 7 to 1, these are our ultimate top tier. Maybe you could get Vierna in there, but no, you couldn't. She's not on the level. These top 7, we can all argue about the order to put them in because they are completely crazy, like really. So there's Yuri at number 7. So versatile, single target, AoE, burst, defense break, insanity, incredible. All right, who's number 6? Who just missed our top 5? This is going to be Khamet. I suspect many people thought he'd be really high on the list. You were right. Some of you probably thought he was going to be top 5. You were just wrong. Before you go complaining, let's just see who the top 5 are first because they're remarkable. Khamet's just really good. He's coded as a single target but performs as an AoE. He's got solid attack for an AoE mage. He's really good, really easy to use. His damage can bounce around when he kills people. Very bursty, the obliteration strike. I don't know how this thing is coded, but it is remarkable. He's just incredible burst damage, incredible AoE with single target multipliers. Very, very, very good hero. He's one of the best mages in the game for a reason. I actually would say he's the best endgame normal mage that we have. But yeah, he's not going to actually crack that top 5 because the other ones have more special things that particularly help you in the early game. So who does come in at number 5? Well, let's see it. That is going to be Beelzebub, my favorite hero. So why is Beelzebub so strong? Like Constance, he also gives inspiration, but he gives everything else you need to enable success in the early game. He lowers the gear requirement of everything. He also lowers the number of heroes you need to bring requirement significantly. When you're progressing, you're trying to bring Dolores and Mari into like all content. With Bubba, you get exactly that in one hero. And that's all the difference. Bringing one extra DPS or one extra healer because he's wearing multiple hats and performing at least 2 roles for all content is completely game-changing for progression. Anyone that's lucky enough to get him to start one of these 3-to-play accounts, or if you're watching this in the future after the challenge, if you get him early on, you'll be able to corroborate this in the comments. It is crazy. His slow is the most consistent AoE slow in the entire game. If you get the skilled out, it lasts for 22 seconds, and it's non-stop in the biggest range in the game. That's also worth mentioning, 5x3. He's dirt cheap at only 10 cost. He even does a little damage. You shouldn't build him for that, but especially early on, where you kind of don't even need to crit all the time, he can do a little bit of damage. He's just got it all going on. Magic vulnerability that comes over here. Just very well-rounded, very unique, very, very powerful. This would this would be my top choice to get him to start my account. Let's continue on, though. Who do we have next at number 4, just outside of our top 3? This is going to be Ajax. I'll tell you, this top 4, this is the cream of the crop right now. Ajax, the damage is really good in general, even in the late and end game, but particularly in the early game where you don't need things to be as special. He is just unbelievable. Similar to Yuri, he's really special by giving you a cleave against the targets. So what am I talking about? This passive over here Any enemy within 2 tiles, and that's a radius, like a circle around him, is going to be inflicted with magic res reduction. You can see it starts at only 10%, but just landing a couple skill ups, you can get this a lot higher. So a much more significant reduction. And if you max it out, it is a 30% magic reduction. This helps you so much. It's so much easier to build all of your magic damage dealing DPS. On top of that, he's a really good magic damage dealing DPS. He's got his burning. He also has nice slows that he can put out. And oh, by the way, he's going to fit into any single team. Go with any lord because he is an unnameable. He's totally versatile, and he gives his unnameable passive, his lord skill, Ancient Blood. That's going to be a 4% damage increase just by bringing him into your team comp. Huge. Such a crazy carry. I've never had Ajax on any account I've ever had. This would be a fun time to get him. Ajax is a truly remarkable hero. I am currently remarking upon him. So our top 3. At number 3, we've got Hatssut. This top 3, I think you guys can probably guess who they are based on who we haven't said. I think these top 3 is crazy. Maybe you could put Ajax in instead of these 3, but I think this 4, yeah. These guys, I mean, this whole top 7, they're crazy. So Hatssut's amazing. She does single target. She's coded as a single target. I know you've heard me say that a lot. It just means her multiplier is really high, but then she does this crazy AoE burst. It's insane. 14 instances of damage if you get this max skilled. Huge punishing DPS AoE, very unique, going all around her. She's got this interesting range. It's crazy. She's got bounce attacks on her basic. It bounces all around. When it bounces, you get defense break. This goes up to 30% if you get it max skilled. It only works if there's targets to bounce between, but boy, when it works, does it work? I don't think I have to say that much about Hatssut. She's a Nightmare marksman, which is kind of strange. Not as good as Yuri, who gets the dual faction with Piercer and Nightmare, but it completely works. Nightmare and Northerner kind of just own the early and mid game, and she's the queen. She's incredible. She just can do anything. And that defense break, especially early on, makes it so she can still succeed really, really well against heavy armor, high defense targets. So she'll help you tons through Gear Aid 1 and stuff like that, where she has no business doing as well as she's going to do. All right, the top 2. At number 2, drum roll, please. We have another Nightmare unit, and this is going to be Arrogance. So Arrogance gets the slight nod above Hatssut, and that's because he's just more versatile. He's a fighter that literally does everything. Big single target, big AoE, big burst, constant delete button against anti-air, burning. He really does everything. He's really easy to build. Skill ups help him a ton, especially if you can get a couple into his ultimate. Ideally, you really want to max this out to knock the 150 cost off, but even running him naked unskilled, he'll still be that good. He's crazy. He's got that special range over here like Zilitu, who we talked about earlier, and then it goes during the ultimate to the full 3x4. For the early game, you can use him in every single piece of content. Full stop. He is as much a jack of all trades, master of all trades as you could have to start this game off. Phenomenal. We love Arrogance. Argument to be the best fighter in the game, especially not counting Lords. In my opinion, for early mid-game, there's no argument. He is the best fighter in the game. Full flippin' stop. So let's go to number 1. I think you can figure out who it is. I think some people will wholeheartedly agree with me. I think some people are going to lose their mind over this. I stand by it. I've used him a ton on early game accounts. I still, even after the nerf a year ago, I still think Boreas is the best progression hero in the game. I really do. I gave it a lot of thought, seeing if anything in my heart had changed before I went to film this video right now. No, it hasn't. He's crazy. Even at A0, you get Mari for free on day 3. Any normal account as they progress is going to bring Mari into like every piece of content. She will provide the freeze. He will do his massive damage from the Eternal Ice Haven. It is just crazy. He brings the anti-heal, so if you need that for like that early mid-game stuff and as you progress further, it's phenomenal. He's just got great damage, great multipliers. He's got constant crowd control, constant AoE. It happens all around him. Do they tell us the range of that? Frozen Purification, there it is. 3 tiles radius in every direction. He just trivializes so much content because it feels like he's like super magic Idril hitting everywhere on the floor. He's remarkable. He's easy to build. Just pair him with Mari, or maybe you get I. Just bring another freezer. Even at A0, this guy solves all your problems. He is amazing against anti-air until their magic res gets really high. That doesn't happen until stuff like Gear Aid 320, so he's going to carry you through all of the progression stuff. I don't think anything could help you push stuff faster, more efficiently than getting an early Boreas. He's a madman. He really, really is. So there you have it. That is my top 20. I'm sure a lot of you guys agree with a lot of it and disagree with a lot of it, so be sure to let me know. I know I said it at the beginning, but I'm going to reiterate now. This is a list of just normal legendary heroes. No limited heroes, no exclusive heroes, no ancient exclusive heroes, no event-only exclusive heroes, right? So stop yelling. I know some of you are going to say, what about Ingrid? What about Praetus? What about Ardeo? What about Sung Wukong? Shut up. Dude, shut up. I explained what this list is. That's what it is. That's my top 20. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know if you're participating in the Epic Challenge. Go ahead to my website. The link will be in the description in the top pinned comment. Join that challenge. We're starting off in about 10 or 11 hours. Thank you. I've been Fastidious. Share with your mother, and I'll see you real soon. Bye.
Fastidious.